Welcome to the uncut version of Your Credit with Polto and Your Future with Valerie Morrison. Today we have a special show that you'll be hearing, but you'll also be seeing us soon on YouTube. Today we'll be talking about how we started, how I started, how Valerie Morrison started, with a special guest in the middle, which you'll be seeing on YouTube. And hearing today is Susan, who's also my client, but hope she's going to find out information from Valerie Morrison. First, we're going to go, I will be interviewing Valerie, Valerie's going to be interviewing me, and then we're going to go to Susan. So this is going to be a really great show, and no phone calls. If we do receive a phone call, make sure you're the President of the United States, because it's the only time we're going to put you through. But anyway, only joking. But this show is going to be videotaped by Ron Homer. We all know who Ron Homer is, Irv Homer's son. And he's going to be doing the whole show. But let's go now. Let's go to Valerie's questions. Again, I am the credit guru, Pearl Polto. Valerie, welcome back to Your Credit, Your Future.
Thank you, Pearl. I'd like to ask you a few questions, who knows how many. When did you start helping people with credit?
1989, I was an insurance agent. And I was helping many people with insurance agents get their life insurance policies. And one person in the group said, Pearl, I'm having a problem with my divorce. And I'm losing my home, and can you help me? And I said, I don't know anything about credit. She said, but can't you help with the credit report? So she showed me a copy of the credit report, and me, as usual, I looked at this report, and I'm saying, something's wrong with this picture. I don't like what this report says. It says date close / verify. What does this mean? And it bothered me. So I did some homework. You can't do homework with credit, but the person I was then is the same person I was now. I went all the way up to Harrisburg to dispute this credit report. And I said, I don't like date close / verify. And that meant, we all know the old cliche, if you have bad credit, it's got to stay on your credit for 7 years. The old cliche, everybody knows this. Well, according to this middle column, date close / verify, if you had an account in 1990 and somebody, naturally 1997, it should be off the credit report under the law. But if somebody verified it in 5 years later, it would stay on 7 more years. And it would constantly stay on, and no one understood credit, but I seen it. I was ahead of my time. So no one understood it, not even the people in Harrisburg. So that's when I wrote my first book, In America Is Bad Credit a Prison Term? And that's when I sued the credit bureau because of that middle column. And that was history then, because then I wanted to know everything there was about credit for the last 30 years.
And you've been doing a great job of it with a lot of my clients.
Thank you.
And helping them, and I want you to continue to do that. I even understand that you've been able to sue some of these creditors. And
bill collectors.
You get money from them?
I don't, but the clients do. If you're getting harassed by a bill collector, if you're getting letters from bill collectors, all you have to do, if one little word, there's a violation, it's a lawsuit case. Now, everybody says to me, well, if it's against the law, why do they do it? And my answer to them is, if you sued a 7-Eleven, it's against the law, but people still steal. So that's the answer to that. It's a violation.
How many books have you written, and how do you feel that they finally educate people when it comes to their credit?
When I wrote my first book, I tried to write it in pure English. Pure English where the average person could understand it, and I learned that from my insurance days. When I went into a household, everybody would say, I didn't know what you were talking about to another agent, and I didn't want to play stupid. So I would say to them in pure English about insurance, and I did it with credit as well. So I wrote the book, my first book, In America Is Bad Credit a Prison Term? Now, I send this to every publisher out there. Every publisher. No one wanted it. No one understood credit, not even the people. Finally, I send the book, and I said, I'm going to promote my own book and send it all over the United States. One producer from Channel 9 in New York contacted me and said, I got your book. I want you to appear on the show. And who your host is going to be was Matt Lowry.
Oh, yeah.
And I appeared on that show. And first she said, she called me back and she said, we changed our mind. And I said, why? And she said, we want you here in person. So I drove up all the way to Caucus, New Jersey. I did the show. And when the show, they were putting all these cue cards in front of me, and I went like this. I don't want to see cue cards. I don't need cue cards. And so the producer there was Mark Lipinski at that time, producer of Joan Rivers' show even. He said, she don't need cue cards. Don't even put it up. Well, when the show was done, we had over 8 million people watching the show and 8 million people calling in. I was a regular there every week for 3 years. And one of the producers left to go to Berkeley's publishing company and said, write another book. And I went on a book tour. So then I wrote another book, We the People Have Credit Rights Too. The other book was Credit Lifeline. And my last book, Are We Doomed? Enough is Enough. So I wrote many books that people can find on the internet if they search.
And is there a particular place on the internet they search, or do they search on all the, like Amazon,
Amazon,
and so forth?
eBay? Just pull up my name at Amazon. You'll see all my books there. And some of them, which I was really appalled by it. If you went on eBay and Amazon, some of them were selling books out of stock for $100, $300, and I'm saying, well, this is crazy. They're selling my books that were out of stock, and they weren't even signed. So what I did is I went back on eBay, and I'm saying, I will sell it for the right price. I am the author, and I will sign it for you. So people are amazing, I mean, for the profit, and I could see why this economy is the way it is. But my mission is to continue to help people with their credit problems and to show the people you do have a right, and you don't have to wait for the 7-year statute. There's 30-day statute.
I was going to ask you about that. You said there's 7 years that their credit is bad, right? That's what they're saying. And then you were saying it can be off in 30
days.
30 days. How do you,
30 days.
how do you manage to help somebody with really bad credit? Let's take myself if I had really bad credit. I'm a widow now.
We will take Susan eventually.
Okay, and I'm a widow now. I was told by my attorney not to become an estate, okay, which I did not. And how do you handle somebody that maybe have a problem? Now, you would take care of anything I have, right?
Exactly. When it comes to credit in 7 years, the old cliche, an account has to stay on for 7 years. There is no schools out there. That's why I wrote books and do seminars all across the United States. There also is a law under Section 611, the same law that has the 7-year statute, is if a credit bureau cannot dispute with the creditor, that account has to be removed. It's not that I'm a miracle worker. I've just gone by the law. But I've known the law since the 80s. It's the people that did not know the laws out there that they could take advantage of with their credit rights.
And the other thing is I tell people that come to my office that are really in dire need, when they mention they're going bankrupt, they're going to have to go bankrupt. They're losing their house. Do they really have to lose their house? Do
they don't even have to go bankrupt
to call you.
You know, it's the best advice you can give your clients, because I'm against bankruptcy. I call it the 10-year curse, because the only reason why people, when I wrote my first book, We the People Have Credit Rights Too, I did a survey. I went downtown and I interviewed everybody that was in the bankruptcy court. And the reason why they were filing bankruptcy is they were getting harassed by bill collectors. And I'm saying there's other options. One, they could have refinanced. Two, we remove charge-offs from a credit report under that 30-day statute. And bankruptcy, I call it the 10-year curse, is because bankruptcy is the only thing that has to stay on your credit report for 7 to 10 years, and that cannot be disputed or removed. So people, do not file bankruptcy out there. There's other options, and there's my option especially. But I have an old saying, I can take you to the water, I can't force you to drink it.
That's true. Many of my people have, they say they already started it. If they already started a bankruptcy.
Stop it.
I was just going to say, can you stop that? Tell them to stop that
course.
And take over for them?
Of course, because on a credit report, when I pull it up, it'll say bankruptcy dismissed. It's simple as that. And if it's dismissed, then I'm going to dispute it to have it removed because it was dismissed. So people should not file bankruptcy for the wrong reasons.
Well, you've been on QVC years ago,
Yes.
and you were selling a credit kit. Do you still have that kit available for people out there?
I sure do. As a matter of fact, the kit is sold at my seminars. The kit sells for $69.95. It's my book, Credit Lifeline, and 6 CDs. And yes, I was on QVC because I used to say I can't take the whole world on as clients, but I will never turn anybody away as a client. And this is where, but then I was a little bit distraught with it because there was attorneys from Chicago purchasing the kit and then went into the credit repair business. So I seen they were doing it for wrong reasons, because this kit was everything that I knew, but more so then. So this kit was very valuable. Even to my clients, I'll say, when you're finished, purchase my self-help kit. Besides being my client, purchase my self-help kit.
Well, let me ask you about this. I had a neighbor, and I think I told you about that before we've talked about it. I was worried about her until she contacted you. Someone walked into her home because she has children, the door is open, and handed her a legal paper which said appear in court because you owe so-and-so to this bank.
Yes.
And how do they get from, let's say it's Visa, okay, and then from Visa it goes, suddenly it's the bank, and then the bank gets the lawyer, and the lawyer has you served. I mean, what's these steps that these people take to harass you or to look around your house, by the way?
Well, you're hearing this live on the radio right now, but you're not going to see it on YouTube, and I'm angry at this, really angry, and I hope it shows on YouTube how angry I am at this, because these people that you're talking about, they're hired by the bill collectors, and there could be a sheriff department that just hired, but they intimidate you. One, you don't have to allow them to come in. That's one. You could say, you're not coming in my house if you like it or not. And if they say, well, I have a whole survey here of what we're going to take from you, let them take one thing, just one little thing, because that TV you have may be mine, and maybe your sister's, and maybe your mother's. And then it's a violation. Do they know it's a violation? Of course they do. I call it a terrorist in this country because the president, Congress, they better do something, because we do have a terrorist in our country, and they're called bill collectors. Now they're going on Facebook. They're going on Facebook to find out information on relatives. How dare them? A person had to sue because a judge said, don't any bill collectors go on Facebook to find relatives. This is against the law. They do it. I've asked them why they do it. I've actually asked bill collectors why they do it. Their answer is, if we have 5 people that know the law and just one person does not know the law, we made money. And this is why they still stay in business. So anybody, if you owe out there, and especially to a bill collector, the only way to put them out of business is not be intimidated, but stop paying bill collectors. And if a person says, well, I know this is my creditor that I'm paying for, and as soon as I hear, well, I have to make an arrangement or a settlement. No. I'm like a surgeon when it comes to credit. You don't make arrangements with your creditors. You make arrangements with bill collectors, and that's a no-no. There's state laws and there's federal laws. People, if you're out there, we're heading, I said in my latest book, Are We Doomed? Enough is Enough. And it is going to be enough is enough, because I'm frustrated with the people. The people now has to know their rights.
Well, what if a creditor walks into your house and ask for your name? I'm not going to give my neighbor's name, okay? And she gets frightened because she doesn't know what it is now. Her children walk in and out of the house, so the door was unlocked. He walked in and said, is this your name, Mary Smith? And she said, no, I'm her sister, because she became frightened. And he said, oh, good, okay, well, would you just sign here with your sister's name? So she didn't know what to do, so she signed it with a false name. And the guy said, thank you, and walked out. She didn't know what it was. 2
violations. One, he shouldn't have walked in the house uninvited. That was one. That was the one lawsuit right there. He walked in uninvited. The second thing is, he only signed so he can go back to his boss, which is the bill collector, to say, oh, I was in the house and I got them. So he could say, I was in the house. And that was just a little technicality that he used.
Couldn't she not pick up the phone and call the police and say she's calling the police because he walked into her house? She doesn't know if he's a rapist or what he is.
Yes, you can pick up that phone, call the police and say, somebody just walked in my house, I want him locked up. And you can have that bill collector, the sheriff's department, whoever he is, locked up. There's so many things with it.
Well, that's good to know.
Susan is here because Susan has a lot of, she's an ordinary consumer, like many people out there, who had a credit problem. Susan, you are my client.
Yes.
And you were many things that surprised you at the beginning.
Well, yeah, like you said, with the country, everyone is so afraid of their bad credit because, like you said, they're being harassed every day, forced to pay their bills, they claim that they will come into your house, take everything that's worth the value.
Did you know about the 7-year, though, when we started?
I did. I knew about the 7-year, and I always believed about the 7-year. That was my thinking because I was brainwashed into thinking that. Now, just to clear the record, I've always had good credit. Up until I had bad credit, it was only because of medical problems. My ex-husband, who I was married to for 23 years,
we won't mention his name,
was injured at work, and he was out of work permanently from his injuries. And there was a period of time where he didn't have income, and I was trying to keep afloat everything, and I had to go into my credit cards just to pay utility bills at that point to try to save my home.
the average house.
Yes.
Yep. The average person.
So, and I always thought at some point I'll be able to catch up and pay them off in the future, hopefully, if he ever gets better or goes back to work or changes his career. Well, that never happened. And in addition to that, we separated. So a lot of the bills were in my name because I was the one only working, and they wouldn't give him any credit, so they put it in my name only. So when we separated, I was forced to pay all those debts, and I was struggling to pay just the minimums on my bills, and I fell behind. Then I had a car repossessed, the house go into foreclosure. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was physically ill over it because I'm not the type of person that doesn't pay their bills. And I tried and I tried and I tried to call my creditors to make payment arrangements.
They wouldn't let you.
It was either pay the full amount on an interest rate, or that they'll offer me half, pay off half. They wouldn't take minimum payments at that point once it was so far in collections. They wanted me to pay most of the balance that I owed, with maybe a 10 or 20% discount at the time. So, now I'm in a better place. My new boyfriend, Ron Homer, who's the son of Irv Homer, I met Pearl Polto through her being a guest host on Irv Homer TV. And I never heard of you before.
Oh boy.
And when I met this woman, I really was a little leery because I didn't believe what she said was true. But now my FICO score with her helping me went from 464 to 590 in 6 months.
Amazing.
And I had some high balances out there on my credit cards, and my credit reports are now showing them off. She's taken most of them off. And in addition to a car that was repossessed, I'm currently working with her attorney who sues bill collectors. And they're still trying to collect money from me for the full balance of the value of the car when I took the car. And I paid on that car for 5 years. It was a 6-year loan.
But look at the money that people waste. What if you had to say something to the people out there that has a credit problem and are sitting there deciding on bankruptcy? What would you say to the average person?
Okay, at first I was about to file bankruptcy. Luckily, I met you before I did because I was real close to doing it. I thought that was my only out. I do not recommend it, even if you own a home or a car and you're stuck, because they cannot take your home and they will not take your car. In most cases, you get to keep one of those items. You may not be able to apply for another credit card, but in time your credit will repair itself. But do not file bankruptcy. Call Pearl Polto.
Well, that's a good advertisement here, though. But which is really interesting because, and to call me, I'm going to give out my toll-free number again: 1-800-876-CREDIT. But if you're on the website, www.pearlpolto.net, pearlpolto.net, and this week, if you go to my website this week, one of my clients sent me a letter. I was really impressed. I met her at a seminar. I didn't expect this letter. I asked Ron to put it on the website because I was really impressed with it because I really touched her life. She almost got scammed. Nothing to do with credit at times. I'm doing her credit. I finished with her. But she almost got scammed. She called me up out of this clear blue sky, and she said, this company called me for a home-based station, and I've given up $500 out of my credit card to get a home-based business. And now I want to take up $6,000 and pay them because they're going to come up with $6,000 more. And I said, something don't sound right here. And no, you're not going to get a refinance. No, you're not going to get this. And what we found out, the company was out of business in 5 minutes. So we called up her credit card company. We stopped the money that was taken out of her credit card company under the Fair Credit Billing Act. And she said, I didn't even know there was a law out there like that, Fair Credit Billing Act. So there's many laws out there, people, that you're unfamiliar with when it comes to credit laws. Don't sit back and say, hey, you know what, I am tired of this mess. I'm not going to lose my home. I am not about to get into a panic because my phone is ringing off the hook. Do not change your telephone number. There is help out there. And, and I can't get the word out. When years ago when people says, well, I heard of you, Pearl, I didn't hear of you. Let's hope they all hear of me now on YouTube. But years ago, when I was appearing in New York, we didn't have cable. We didn't have Comcast in certain areas. We didn't have Verizon. So I couldn't walk down the streets of New York. Philadelphia, I could walk all day and all night, but not New York. And Valerie can testimony because she looked like we were in the same green room together, and we weren't even in the same room together. So that's ironic too that her and I met. But at the same time, if you have a credit problem, many people come in my life, the rich, the poor, the famous, and it could be even attorneys I have as clients. Why? I'm a paralegal. It has nothing to do with credit laws. Credit laws are found in Congress, not in law school. So there's many things that are out there when it comes to your rights. This show is going to be really extraordinary, and here's why. Because finally you got to know who I was, where I came from, and we're not done. Because now we got a little surprise for Valerie too at the end from my guest. But now it's my turn to turn the tables.
Wait, I have another credit question.
Oh, all right. Past due. Sorry. Go ahead.
Susan had mentioned something about they took her car.
Yeah.
How can they take her car, or can they take a car that's paid off?
No.
Okay.
No.
How can they take her house unless she could not?
The mortgage.
She was way behind.
Yeah, the mortgage is the
that
only
it?
one.
Okay, they can't just come and attach your house.
No, they can't
because
take
the
your
bank,
car either.
doesn't it own your house?
Yes.
That's the problem that I sent some people to over. They're paying their mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
They're maybe 2 things behind on it, and they're frightened to death because they've scared them they're going to take their house. Now, I understand through you that the bank owns the house.
The bank owns it, and let me say something. Those of you that have mortgage companies with this one bank, Bank of America, the government is actually sued Bank of America to the mortgage companies because it's foul play. I'm surprised they're still in business. I am surprised they're still in business, Bank of America, because they're fouling up many people out there that are paying, that says they're not paying, the modifications, all this. If your bank is Bank of America, please call me because I'm sure you're having a problem though. But you can always call me with your credit question. You can always call me again, www.pearlpolto.net. You'll love the website. And also 1-800-876. And because of Easter week, because of this holy holiday with any religion that you're out there, you will have a special wherever you see this on YouTube or the radio. You have a special for the holidays. You just say, I heard this on this, and you will get a special from me, I can assure you. But you're not going to get out of this, Valerie. That's this easy. It's your turn. It's your turn.
I was kind of hoping we could just go with you, Pearl.
On credit. No, it doesn't work that way. You should know me better.
I think I do by now.
All right. And everybody wants to know this, especially the questions I have asked you. When did you know that you had psychic abilities?
Well, I grew up with a grandfather in a mining town in western Pennsylvania, and he came from Hungary, and of course most of the people from Hungary would go into the mines, and he was the psychic, the big psychic. I never knew my grandmother. She died in Hungary at 45. She also had a lot of psychic ability. I was living with my grandfather because my father died about a year after I was born, so I never knew him, never had a father till I was 11 years old, really, and a great father he really was. But my grandfather would give readings in the evening and work in the mines through the day. And so he raised me, and of course, there's a little bit of a boyishness to me sometimes when I get a little bit upset. So I was raised with myself and 4 boys. None of the boys that I knew of had that ability, but I started to immediately have that ability. My mother would come over to the house. She worked 2 jobs, as I said. She came over, and one day I heard her on the phone at my grandfather's say something about, I'll finish the ironing when I get the plugs out of the wall. I pulled the cord and the plug stayed in. Well, I was playing in water, and I thought, what a nice thing at 5 years old. I'll just go over and help my mom. So I came out of the water and touched the prongs and remember flying across the room. My grandfather was working through the day that day in the mines, and I don't know much else except everything went black, and next thing you know there were firemen there, and I remember opening my eyes, and I remember saying to my mother, am I dead or alive? Yeah, and I looked at the firemen, and there was black all around him. I guess what we would consider the aura, the colors that go around a person. And a week later he was killed in a fire. So I immediately started seeing spirits. My grandfather didn't want me to do any intuitive work. He said it would drain you. It doesn't, as you see, you have lots of energy. It would drain me, etc., etc. I couldn't help it. I had an aunt by the name of Helen, and I slept upstairs, and my grandfather had an old, you know, Hungary has a lot of superstitions. And the superstitions were you don't put any coats on the bed. And the reason when you have guests, if they're on the bed, whomever they've touched on the bus, the train, in their car, people they know that are evil or perhaps have a lot of problems, you're going to sleep under those problems all night long. So I went up to bed that night. He set me up around 8 o'clock, and I went and I saw all these coats on my bed. And I remember thinking, why? Oh my grandfather's going to be really upset with all these coats on the bed. And all of a sudden I saw my Aunt Helen. And she was dressed in white. She was very pale. And as she was coming towards me, I said, Aunt Helen. I was so happy to see her. And suddenly as she got closer, she smelled like a million flowers I can't even identify. And I got frightened. And I screamed and I screamed. And my grandfather came running up the steps and he said, what's the matter? I said, Aunt Helen's dead. Aunt Helen's dead. And there were no coats on the bed when I looked again. I said, the coats like that. And he said, Aunt Helen's fine. I just spoke to her. Now, he didn't pick up that. Mm-hmm. And in the morning, he had to call me down to tell me that my Aunt Helen, who was the same age as my Helen, who mm-hmm. passed away, was 32 years old. She was found dead.
Did you know you had this talent then when this happened to you?
Yes. Well, no, I didn't know I had. Well, I knew I saw things that would dash by me mm-hmm. quickly. I couldn't identify them, but my grandfather kept telling me, shh, you can't do this. You can't go to school and talk about this. They'll think you're a witch. And so it's something I really didn't want to say. And it was funny because a boy at school got me upset over something, and I remember kicking him. And I said, anyway, I don't care what happens to you. You're going to break your leg anyway. Now, it was just a saying. I didn't wish him to break his leg. Yeah. And 2 days later, he came to school in a cast. And I told my grandfather, you know, I made a wish and somebody broke their leg. He said, no. What you're doing is you're doing what I'm doing. You're picking up things on people. And I don't want you to do this. I want you to become a nurse. I want you to become a doctor. And so I couldn't stop it. My grandfather passed away. I was very young. I took care of him until he passed away. And he wanted me to swear in the Bible I wouldn't do what I was doing. And because I kept doing it, you know, I would see something with a friend of mine. I remember a friend of mine that was older than me. I was just a kid, and she must have been about 19. She said, let's go for a ride to the store and do some shopping. And I said, okay. And I went out and I touched the car door. And when I did, I felt this tremendous amount of energy and something that came over me. I can't explain it. And I said, I can't go with you. And she said, why? I said, I can't. I didn't know why, Pearl. I didn't know why. She was in a really, really bad accident. She was almost killed, and I would have been killed. So I have used that in ways to help people now. You know, rather than I'm not afraid to go up to someone in the supermarket and say, I'm sorry for your loss. You know, I do that.
What is the difference now? What is the difference between a psychic and a medium?
I am a psychic medium.
Does one have the other gift, or is it both combined?
No, they're not usually combined with one person. A person can be psychic. They can read cards. I don't need cards. They can read the crystal ball. I have my grandfather's. I can't do that. I have to do whatever. I tell anyone, whatever comes into my mind about you comes out of my mouth. I feel that God goes into my heart and he makes it come out of my mouth. And a medium is someone, if you're just a medium, mm-hmm. a medium is someone who sees the dead, speaks to the dead, and allows the dead to speak back to them. E.g., example, had someone the other day who came in and she had just lost her husband, young woman, and with 2 children, and I was able to see, well, she showed me a picture of her husband. first, she didn't tell me he was gone. And I said, I don't feel a life force with your husband. Are you two having a problem? And she said, my husband's dead. And then it was easy for me to say what happened, how it happened, etc. But the main thing, the conclusion of that, I won't go through the whole thing because I won't remember things that are done in my office. But I do remember certain things because they're so traumatic for me. And nothing sucks the energy from me. So, but it helped her even more. I took her in my arms, and as I held her, he showed me something. And I said, I don't understand this. Your husband said to tell you one more thing before you leave. Carpenter boots. And she said, my husband was a carpenter. And so the psychic part is people that claim, and remember, there are a lot of gypsies out there, people that have, you don't go to anyone that has
Atlantic
lights
City on the
flashing,
boardwalk,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. You know, if you see a flashing
Or
sign,
the
or all that,
900
stay
numbers on your
away.
television. You see the 900 numbers all the time, and you know, and
Exactly.
I always think they're a scam.
Well,
A lot
they
of
are.
other people do.
They are, and they ask people for money, and you know.
How accurate in all your readings through all your years, because you're an icon in the psychic business, and you're the one that should have been on the Montel show, because you're the icon to me, just like I was the icon of the credit world, and yet, you know, they always try to squeeze in. How accurate, would you say, percent-wise, is when a person comes to you? Do you just feel them, or is it just, I know it's not guessing because you feel it, but how accurate are you?
I'd say 85 to 90% accuracy is what's been claimed by people that have done shows with, like Maury Povich, Irv Homer, your father on. And but I remember Irv at one particular point when I couldn't get in. I couldn't get into the show. And it was snowing so bad on my hill. He tried to do the show. And I think Ron has probably heard that story. And he had to sleep for 2 days after, told people on the show, I got it right, but I will never, ever do it again. Sparkanish said he couldn't understand how I could read the person he told me to read, which was his producer that I didn't get to see, that was sitting behind me. He said, don't turn around, don't look at him, tell me about him. And I saw an upcoming marriage. He was getting married, and a lot of other things that I can't remember. But I think that question has been asked many times. The only thing I like to say to people out there that are watching, listening to us, is the fact that I'm not God. I may be off a little. I may be 2 months one way or 2 months another way, a couple weeks this way, a couple weeks that way. I guess the good thing about it all is I have to be pretty accurate, and I don't like to brag about myself in that way.
Go ahead, you can brag today.
No, but the thing is that people are coming back to me even now, after 30 years. Their children are coming that I've predicted. And that's a big one for me, because I can lead the children in the right direction as college or anything else goes. And so I would say that I'm highly accurate, and I can do it almost anywhere I am. Okay. So that's the important thing about it. And I know people have asked me that so many times, and even Aruba, when I did my Aruba radio show, they've asked me that, how did you know that? It's just that I can only answer it the same way as you're asking me. God talks to my heart, and my mouth speaks to you.
You know, many of your fans and many of the listeners out there know for a fact that your husband and your daughter passed away. And when you do a reading for a person that lost a loved one, does that interfere where you see your husband and daughter, or does it get stronger when somebody is appearing in front of you or calling you that says, I lost a loved one, and you know your husband and your daughter passed away? Does that make it stronger to answer their question or to see their loved one, or does it make it, are you in your own silence of your own grief? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. What I feel, and I've been asked that question before, Pearl. I think you asked it before too, when I gave your mother's name to you.
Oh, yes.
But the thing is that I don't feel that it affects me at all. I don't think of Helen and I don't think of Charles when I'm doing a reading for someone who lost someone. I'm only thinking of that person. I'm thinking of holding that person's hand. I hand them Kleenex. I will go around if it's necessary. They are so in grief, they're crying at what I'm saying, that I will actually go around and sit next to them, which is not often, and hold them in my arms. But I always, always hug my patient before they leave my office. I always hold them, and that's when that carpenter shoe thing will come in, or something else that a person will know that really truly is that person. Now, it doesn't always happen, but the rest of it does. I'm able to see the dead, not and to describe them. I can't tell you if they had red hair, blonde hair, green hair. I can't do that, but I see them. It's almost like a shadow, and it's a beautiful yellow light. And I know I'll be speaking to them, and they'll be asking me, whether it's husband and wife, about their child or whatever it may be. Suddenly there's a light that appears, and as the light appears, I say, he's here or she's here. And she said, now I recently had a gentleman who had lost his wife. His 6 children came with him to my office. He was in such distress. And I took him into the office, and he cried a lot as she came through. She said, tell my husband he looks silly sleeping with a pink blanket. And he looked at me and said, oh, we always use that pink blanket because she loves the pink blanket. And he got, as we got along and she spoke to him, he felt better and better and better, and he smiled a little. And I said, you better keep that smile on when you go out to the children. And when we went out to the children, I hugged each one of them as they were leaving because they weren't getting sessions. And I looked at the grandson, I said, how old are you? And he said, 20. And I said, you're 20 years old. Did you just get out of prison? And he said, yes. And everyone just looked at him. And I said, well, I have something to tell you. You're on probation, is that correct? He said, yes. He said he wanted to be a medical person. I said, you'll never be a medical person. You will not be allowed to give out medical things or medicine because of what you've gone through. However, I will tell you something. In 2 years, everyone here will hear what I'm saying. You have a choice because I love you. And that choice is you'll either be back in prison with hardened criminals or we'll have another funeral. You take your pick. What happened was each person that left me hugged me and kissed me. The boy ran into my arms and thanked me, which is the greatest thing. I think his grandmother put him up to doing that. And I have calls from the family and from the husband thanking me. They said he's 110% better. That's the payment. Even though you're paying me, the payment is that you remember me, and they say, we'll be back sometime soon.
We'll be back sometime. You know, everybody, if you're a producer out there and you're listening or you're going to be seeing this, you know, Your Credit, Your Future should be worldwide. And I think everybody out there will agree that we do have the listeners that hear this. It should be out there worldwide. So if you're a producer, if you're a show. Valerie and I, with the Your Credit, Your Future, we're back to back. This should be on every bulletin board out there, back to back, because it has to do with you as a person. But we have my guest today, Sue. Have you ever met Valerie Morrison?
No. Well, briefly at the Broadcast Pioneers dinner, but we didn't get a chance to talk at all.
Okay, and Valerie, my guest today lost someone. Now, could you help her? Because I'm not even going to tell you what she lost, who she lost, and she's hurting. But maybe you could help her out.
Yeah. First of all, before I ask any questions, thank you for having me. It's an honor for you to do this for me, Valerie.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I've never been skeptical of psychics. I've been to a couple of them with the flashing lights.
Yeah.
And I can tell the difference between kooky and authentic. I was one good psychic in my life. Am I allowed to say his name?
Yes.
His name was Dr. D. And
Oh my gosh,
Mr. D.
He is the best.
Mr. D.
He is very good. We're good friends, by the way.
Well, he predicted this man, Ron Homer, would be, I would be in a relationship with him, and that was 21 years ago. And he said his name clearly out 20 years ago, and I was married at the time.
Well, let me tell you something. Frank D'Angelo, my producer here, went to see him, and he went through a list of questions and then said, who's Valerie? He didn't even know me.
Wow.
And years later, he said he saw him moving.
Oh my
He
gosh.
saw him living where there looked like something like a barn, which we have.
Really?
And everything he said, he's very, very good.
Oh.
You know, I know that he takes a lot of time off. He told me that sometimes people think he's overbooked, but it's just because he needs the relaxation.
Yeah.
I don't. I get crazy if I'm not working.
Right, and I can tell everybody out there, I've never had a reading from Valerie, but just look in her eyes and you can tell she's authentic. I'm serious.
All right.
She has
Well,
those
let's.
mesmerizing
What do you
eyes
see? What do you see with
and
Susan?
a lot of good in her eyes.
Well, I don't want to play any games here, and I won't lie. And you've told me that you lost a sister.
yes,
And
on
so I'm not
Christmas
going to
Day.
say that I, by the way, she did tell me that, Pearl. And you lost her when?
On Christmas Day.
You know,
this past
I don't know
Christmas.
what this means, but after you told me that, it may not mean anything to you at this point. Sometimes people have to look at pictures and so on and so forth to see the names that I'm getting.
Right.
But I kept feeling something about a Linda around her. I don't know if it meant anything to your family or not. I also get something about a Joseph, and I'm also getting something about a Carol or a Karen. I don't know what that means. Does that mean anything to you? And it just
I'll
me
tell
if it
you right
doesn't.
now, no, it doesn't, but it could later.
Mhm.
I may have to think about that, but I'll let you know.
That's what usually
something for me to
happens
think
a lot of
about.
the times. You know, the name, you have to remember they could be living or dead
The
also.
Joseph part, yes, you are correct. That's my father's middle name, and he has passed away.
Okay.
He passed away in 2009.
Well, I just feel as though your father came for your sister. So that could be why he's coming up so much.
Right.
And usually when you get a name, they did come. Did your father ever have anything to do with taking like a SEPTA, a bus or trains at any particular point in his life?
No.
Do you know why that would come in around him or your sister?
Well, my sister did
That
take
there-
public
that's what I needed.
transportation
Okay.
often.
All right, I'm feeling that. And do you know anything about her stumbling or falling?
Well, when she died, she stumbled to her death. She fell flat on her face.
Okay, we didn't talk about that, so I was feeling that. Now I understand that there's they're saying there's some primary cause for her death. Is that true?
Yes, they're well, pretty much 90% an enlarged heart, but
Mhm.
she never had a diagnosis of any heart problems in the past.
And she was checked by the doctors.
The coroner actually did an autopsy on her the next day and found her heart was enlarged.
Mhm.
They also ordered a toxicology test. We're still waiting for results.
Well, I have to I use a little medical along with my psychic, but I can also say an enlarged heart along with the medication, which was a multitude, right, she was taking, would have caused the heart to stop
Right.
and would have peacefully made it a sudden death where she didn't suffer.
And you're right, that's what they did say. The coroner said it was definitely quick. She didn't suffer.
Is there somebody around her also besides the Joseph that you mentioned that was her, your father's middle name? Would there be a Josephine? Do you know anything about a Josephine or a Marie? Is that-
Hello.
There was an aunt. There isn't an Aunt Josephine, but she was from the other side of the family, from generations before.
But it doesn't matter.
Right.
And now she's passed away.
Yes.
She also is with your sister.
Oh. And do you think my sister was with my father?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yes. Oh, they went through their problems, didn't they?
Yes.
Okay. I just see a lot of anger and upsetment between your father and your sister before her passing over, and I feel as though he neglected her. He wanted her out of the way. He didn't really
Yes.
want to have her around. It was almost as though he did not want to love her.
You're 100% on the spot. Yes, that's true.
But he did love her.
He did
and
love
he
her.
felt very badly about what he had done in her life.
Absolutely.
It was almost as though, well, I'll just discard this. You know, it's not important to me. I'm not going to pay attention to this. I don't want to even hear this. It's not my problem.
Right.
You know, and everything looked like it was being blamed on your mother in a way, but
Right.
not your father. Your father loved your sister very much and you, and you have to forgive what he had done or what he had been. One thing you have to know is that he always loved her and now is able to tell her that. And I don't see her having any problems now as far as any injuries, walking, talking, or anything else like that. I see her doing one thing she always wanted to do, and that's dancing.
Really?
You know, I feel that she always felt she would like to dance. If she were watching television and there was dancing, she would try to make movements for dancing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing she's able
That
to do
sounds
in
like
heaven.
my sister.
Yeah.
That's it. Valerie, let me tell you, you're face to face with a person.
That's
Suppose
amazing.
somebody
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suppose somebody contacted you. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you that. Do you do readings let's say all over the world do you do readings? And people will see this on YouTube. Do you do readings all over the world? The people that would see you and want it, do they have to be in person?
No, we do telephone consultations as well because we get calls from France and England and Afghanistan. Of course, you know about that. We received an award, Frank D'Angelo and myself, from Afghanistan, where they flew the flag 5 hours and 30 minutes in the face of the enemy for the work we did with the troops by accepting their calls. Because they can only call on the computer because you think you can give your cell phones to them. You cannot anymore. The enemy has learned a way that you push a button for a cell phone, bomb blows up. So they have to use the computer to contact me, which is many hours different. When it's light there, it's dark here, and vice versa. So they would call me at 4 in the morning because that would be a good time for them. So they gave us the award for taking their calls and their emails, and they sent us the flag from Afghanistan. There's a joke about that because Frank said, you have a box from Afghanistan, shall I open it or will you? I said, no, it might be a bomb, you open it. Just joking, because it was the flag. I cried so much over that. The boys that are there, they should be coming home. You know, I predicted on the air here, if you all remember that I felt an injury coming to Mr. Obama at some particular point this year. That was last year. If you remember that, Nikki, I don't know. But, of course, he did get stitches in his lip this year, as I had predicted there was an injury. There's even more things he has to be careful about as we come into 2012, you know, the infamous 2012. He has to take really good care of himself and of his family. There are a lot more protection from the CIA and the Secret Service must come in for him. But the other thing is that, yes, the calls, and they're different times, so we try to make it my time so it's easier for me. My time to make calls to overseas is to take their calls, rather. I'll say, call me on this, I have a personal line, private line, it's only for calls. And they will have to do that at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night so I can take the calls, which are done on Saturdays and Sundays. Now, a lot of people in the United States, what they do, they have to be, they get their calls, but it has to be done on a Sunday or a Monday night. Pearl, if they can't get here because of illness, such as your sister, or if there's any illnesses or any questions they need to ask me about their session, you know, or that they already had or that they will be having, I tell them to send photographs of the people they'll be asking about on my computer if they could do that. A lot of times they can't. They don't know how to scan. So I do it blindly, but I do it as well as I can, the best that I can, because I love them so much. And each one of those people become very, very important to me. Every one of them become my friend, my family, whether I'm going out with them or not. You know, they bring me my very favorite lattes or my very favorite of anything. You know, they say, here's a latte. I just had a couple the other day that said, you're not eating, you've lost too much weight. What do you want, lasagna? Okay.
Like lasagna.
I feel to tell you that I love the people that come to my office. I love to see them. I love to touch them. I love to hug them.
I think this is great. This is a live show that's also being taped, and they're hearing the real you, the real me. What more does a person want? Now, but if a person wants a reading, let's say from California or just from your backyard, Philadelphia, first of all, how would they contact you?
Well, to get an office session by phone or coming into my office, they would call 215-483-8881. I would like it very much if they would go to ValerieMorrison.com, where they can see everything there is about me, the working that I do with the police, and everything that I'm still doing with, in fact, the Historical Society. And I mean, trying to find someone who's been dead for 300 years is, you know, should be a challenge. It really isn't one for me. Will I climb a cliff that's 160 feet high? Yes, of course I will.
What is your website? What is your website?
My website is ValerieMorrison.com, the easiest one. There is another one where they can see more. And I would suggest they go to ValerieMorrison.com to find out prices. My prices are very low.
That was my next question because
I must be psychic to know you would ask that.
my next question was because we all know. I mean, and I'll mention the host, Montel Williams. You know, I must have a block with this person's name because I'm always.
Well, you're better not saying it, really.
Yeah, really. But the thing is, they, you know, when they think they charge, and I know, you know, there's psychics. They, you know, everybody has to charge a living, and you really, to me, you undercharge, but you help the people on top of it. And I was impressed with that. The same with my business. I undercharge, but I'm out to help the people. And I said to you, between the two of us, we're on the same page for some reason. Because we're icons in the business, and yet we're out to help the people. Even with our prices, we're out to help the people. And yet we don't get the glory as much as we should as the other people, but we don't want the glory. Because we're out to help the people. And I've been in many green rooms that you followed me or I followed you.
Yes.
We never met in a green room.
Right.
And it's really weird. We met again here in Philadelphia at an odd source. But what do you think of that?
Well, I think someone that would charge $1,000 for a reading is that's ridiculous. I mean, and that's what someone from television does. And then they get their son involved or whatever it may be. Come on, the son wasn't even probably psychic. But I can't answer for that. I can only say that's God. That, well, you know, that God, whatever religion you are, is perfectly fine with me. I don't care if you're Hindu and you come to me. I don't care what you believe in when you come to me. I'm not there to judge you. I don't care if you're a married woman and you're seeing another man. I am not going to judge that. I will not judge you in my office. I feel there's a higher source that you have to worry about. And maybe it's quite all right. Maybe you have a lousy husband. Come on.
And I don't want the show to end before I ask this question. How many people come up to you that are afraid of psychics, afraid that you're going to see through them, afraid that as they're sitting in front of you, they're afraid that you're going to see, one, that they're cheating, two, they're going to die. Do you ever tell a person that somebody's going to die?
No, that's someone I don't get that. I don't get that. Okay. I really don't. If someone will ask me, and I want you all to know this because you do it all wrong in one way. They say, am I going to have a long life? Okay. And I say, yes. And I may say up to 88 if they're in their 60s or whatever. And I will, of course, my medical background does not let me look at a person to see what's wrong with them, but I will see it. I may say, you're a diabetic, aren't you?
Can you predict death?
I can predict death if they have someone in the hospital that's very ill. Okay. And they say to me, and you've heard someone on this show that has called me, her name is Dee, and has said, how much time do I have now with my husband? And my answer over the air was, enjoy the next 7 months. And she knows he's very ill. Also, you remember she called about her grandson who had MRSA, which my husband died from. Yeah. And I said, he's going to be just fine. And you remembered her last call, and I'm sure our producer does, that she said, he's home now. He's home after almost dying. And I just feel as though I don't feel the death of that person. But the one wrong thing you're all doing out there is when you say to me, how long do I have to live? Why don't you say, will it be a healthy time up to 88? Okay. No one ever says that. So I wait for, some people will, but that's rare. They don't say it. So I have to say, you have a critical point in your life at 76, but you'll live to 88. What is a critical point? I don't know. I don't pick that up because I don't want to. I'm not God. Only God knows what the critical point is. So I say, so therefore start taking better care of your health.
I'm going to do a special on this because of YouTube, and I'm going to do a special on this show. Everyone that has a credit problem out there, from here to France to California, everyone that becomes my client, not only are you going to get a discount, but you're also going to get, with the service, a free reading from Valerie Morrison on the phone, or if you're in a local area, you're going to get a free reading through my service if you become a client. That's what I'm offering there for those of you, because if you're having a credit problem, you definitely want to know your future at the same time. And we're getting short of time, so I'm going to have Valerie, but anyone that has a credit problem, 1-800-876-CREDIT, 1-800-876-CREDIT, or go to my website, www.pearlpolto.net. This will be on my website. This will be on YouTube. This will be on Valerie's website. So for all of you to see, take advantage of this. Valerie, say it again, your website, your phone number.
It's ValerieMorrison.com, done very well by my manager and our co-producer. And I want to thank Nikki, our producer here, who's smiling with her hat on today. She looks cute.
If you're at NBC, hire her.
Yes, that's right. She's very good. And my co-producer does all my work, my cards, my DVDs about my murder cases, everything that I have to do. He's the responsible, and I want to thank Frank D'Angelo for all the work he's done in keeping Valerie Morrison on a straight line. Today, I have not been a very good person out there, Frank, to you, but it's because of energy. And it's very hard for a person to know why your energy can go one way and not the other, and you're picking up something and you don't know what it is. When it comes to myself, Pearl, I am so happy I can't pick up things about myself, but I don't like the idea that I say, I have a bad feeling, I have a bad feeling. And I'll tell that to him, and then something happens within a day or two. So I just want to say, go to ValerieMorrison.com. You'll find out my phone number there, everything about me that Frank has put on. And I want to say, I love working with Pearl, and I love working with you, Nikki. And I want to thank Ron Homer, and I want to thank you, Susan, for everything today that you've said for me and about me. I can only say the one thing I say to all of you out there before tuning out, which is God bless. I love you all. Have a wonderful holiday, whether it's Passover, Easter, or whatever one you're celebrating throughout the whole world. Make yourself happy.
And I'm going to say this, anybody out there, you know, for us to join forces back to back should be nationwide, worldwide. If you're listening to the show, have any connections, and you want back to back on your station, your TV, your radio, all you have to do is pick up the phone. And pick up the phone at WHAT, because we're both here together for the first time. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good that we joined forces today for the first time, and with a live consumer on top of it. Thank you, Sue.
I would like to say that I feel Susan marrying Ron Homer. And I just feel that there's the reason they're waiting a little while longer is so she can get everything straightened up in her life. And as she straightens it up, I feel that there'll be a wedding that we can go to.
All right.
All
right.
Wonderful.
All right. Now we're gonna let you know here, live on the air here. Again, this is Valerie Morrison with your future. This is Pearl Polto with your credit. Susan, who's she just got a prediction here. We will let you know, because you're gonna be watching this on YouTube. So we will let you know on Facebook. If you want to go to my Facebook, go to my Facebook. You'll see what's going on out there. This is Pearl Polto. As always, Valerie Morrison.
And Valerie Morrison, who loves you all with all her heart.
Back to back. We'll see you next week. Have a nice holiday.
God bless.
You know, that way.